is go to each room that is an audio or a video zone and tell them to turn off. But since the equipment closet is neither an audio nor a video zone, you don't have to shut it off. Now if you add that command, it doesn't hurt anything, but it just doesn't do anything either. So you can add it, it doesn't do anything. If you don't add it, it doesn't hurt anything. We just have to make sure that we're shutting off the rooms that are our audio or video zones. And if we include every single one, this would be a command to shut off all of the house's AV equipment. And that's the reason we might choose to use a macro like this. Because, you know what, you're going to use that house off command pretty frequently. Maybe you call it house AV off or something like that. But now I can go in and say on that kitchen keypad, when I double tap, the room off button here, I want it to trigger that AV off macro. And then if I wanted, I could add in lighting scenes. I could add in any other commands to shut other things off, like shut my garage door, perhaps. Lock the door. And technically, I could add all of these to the macro if I wanted. If I knew I was always going to be doing these same commands in conjunction, it might be easier for me, rather than adding it in independent of the macro, to include it directly with the macro.
So if you put the closed patio garage door sensor, it knows that if it's open or closed, if it's closed, don't do anything to it?
Yep. Because the system always does logic checks in those instances, where it says, what's the status of this device right now? All right, any questions on that one, number 6? Let's take a look at number 7. I know a couple people said they had some difficulty with this one. I think the hardest thing about this command, this join command, is just remembering where it is. So if you struggled with it, here's the key. Digital media. That's where the zones commands are. This is essentially the same thing as if I went to the listen menu, I went to the zones page, and I said, hey, I want to listen to what they're listening in there, so I choose add rooms. That is the same as this. But if you couldn't find it, or you struggled with finding it, write yourself a note in your reference manual, that spiral bound one. So that way you can use it in the future. You say, oh, that's right, the join command is under digital media. Now what we're doing is we're saying, here it wants us to join the rest of the house to what's playing in the kitchen keypad. So we're saying, I'm going to be cleaning the house. So I cue up my music there in the kitchen, and then I hit the join button. Starts playing everything else in the rest of the house. So the selected room for us is going to be the kitchen. And then we want to add all of the various rooms. Now this kind of applies to that same audio off command, where do I need to include the equipment closet? It's not an audio zone, so I don't have to. If I did, it wouldn't hurt anything, but not necessary. What about the kitchen? If I'm starting the music in the kitchen, do I need to include the kitchen? No. If I did, again, it doesn't hurt anything, but it's not as if it's adding itself to its same string. So you can have it checked, you don't have it checked, it does the same. Double click there. And now that makes it so that whatever you're listening to in the kitchen, if you press the join button, will be playing in the rest of the house. For us, that's just one other zone, but that's better than nothing. Okay? So I don't think the command itself is very hard. Usually it's just, where was it? And a lot of times that is what programming, that becomes difficult in programming, is I can't remember where a certain command was. If you find yourself struggling with that, write yourself a note when you find it. Remember, you can use your notes on the test. So notes are helpful. And in the real world, they'll be helpful too, because you go, oh, where was that? I can't remember. I remember I had a hard time finding it when I was in class. Let me open up my reference manual. Well, that's right, it was here. So anytime you struggle with finding a command, write yourself a note. Okay? All right, let's take a short break. So 15 minutes, be back here at 10:45. We'll finish up the rest of these activities. Okay. Yeah.